Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Kesteven series. This is a large Lincolnshire district centred around the town of Sleaford. There's 75 parishes here, so let's take a look at one of them. Welcome back to North Kesteven, everybody. Now, you remember last week in Waddington we began at the site of an old railway station, and I wasn't totally sure if it was actually a station building. However, in this one we're doing exactly the same thing, and I'm 100% sure on this one that behind me is definitely an old station building, and you can even see part of the old platform just there. This is where we're beginning the parish of Harmston. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Moving south through North Kesteven from Waddington, today we have Harmston. This sits just to the west of the A607, about 5 miles south of Lincoln. Like Waddington, it also sits on the Lincoln Cliff overlooking the valley below. It is unusual to find villages perched on the edge of a cliff, but here there's a very good reason for it. Water. For centuries, rainwater has soaked through the local limestone, becoming trapped by a layer of clay immediately beneath. The result of that is a line of springs almost at the top of the ridge. The cliff villages all grew around those springs, and here in Harmston you can see where it was. In the Domesday book, Harmston was held by the Earl of Chester. By 1154 it had been subdivided, and some of the land was acquired by monastic houses, including Thurgarton Priory, which we covered back in Newark and Sherwood. Then in 1557 along came the Thorold family. 3 generations of their descendants became increasingly wealthy through financial business in London, and in the 1700s they would build Harmston Hall. In due course, the hall became a hospital, with wards and other buildings spread over former parkland. It closed in 1989 and became increasingly derelict until it was bought in 1996 by Peter Sowerby. He restored the hall and more than doubled the population of the village in the process. Let's go and find out how. Our start point for this trip around Harmston is on Station Road. If that sounds familiar, well, it certainly should do. This is what's left of Harmston Railway Station, which was on the Lincoln to Grantham railway line, opened in 1867. It was the next station to the south after Waddington, and unlike its larger neighbour, there are visible remains here. The station building and its platforms are clearly identifiable, and so too is part of the former track bed. Once again, we have a farm track which shows you the approximate route of the line. It more or less followed this. Harmston also appears to have had a level crossing. Backing up that theory is this house next to the station. The sign on the wall reads Station Crossing Cottage, and it's even shaped like a level crossing sign. Just like the station at Waddington, Harmston's closed in 1962. The line, though, remained active until 1965. Station Road runs to the west, providing traffic with an access point to the A46 via the village of Oban. Okay, so here we are in the main village after driving up the cliff from the station, and our start point for the main walk is a nice central position outside the church. Let's go and explore this to begin. Our main walk begins at All Saints Church, which occupies a central position right in the heart of Harmston village. It's part of the Grafo group of churches, and we'll see the rest of them as we journey through this part of North Kesteven. There are 6 Grafo churches in all. Here in Harmston, All Saints has 2 regular services every month. This is the Lit Gate, which dates from 1905. It's made of wood and brick primarily, and is surmounted by a stone cross. The church is a focal point within Harmston, not least because of its tower, which was added in around 1100. Apart from the tower, the rest of the church was rebuilt on its original foundations in around 1717 in a rudimentary, classical style. It was remodelled into the Gothic style in 1867 and is now a splendid example of the mid-Victorian ideal of a village church. Opposite the church is Church Walk. Despite being a dead end, there's a path at the end of this towards our next area. One final look at the church in our rear view mirrors, if you will. We'll be back here later at the end of the walk. For now though, it's on into the suburban-like area to the south, which has quite an interesting backstory. Now, I should make the point that even though I'm a West Lindsey boy, I do know quite a lot of North Kesteven's villages. I knew Waddington quite well last week, but Harmston is one of these places that's always passed me by. I've never been here before, so I don't really know what to expect from it. I guess this walk will shine some light on that, I guess. This is Harmston Park Avenue. It's a modern residential street which forms part of a huge southern housing estate. Until 1996, Harmston was a small agricultural village, and this kind of new development wasn't even thought of. However, that's when local property developer Peter Sowerby bought the derelict Harmston Hall and changed all of that. Harmston Hall sits just to the north and west of this estate. We'll see the gates to it near the end of this route. Sowerby built this brand new housing estate, transforming Harmston into a commuter village for workers in Lincoln. Completed in 2006, the estate is built on the site of a former mental health hospital complex, of which Harmston Hall was a part. It functioned as the headquarters for the Lincolnshire Joint Board for Mental Defectives. It closed in 1989. This new estate still has a few quirky residents. Check out this dude watching over proceedings from one of the gardens. Almost all the way around the estate now, the attractive houses and bungalows continue back towards the north. On the way, we pass a wall on the left where we have the parish notice board. Harmston is off the North Kesteven list. Well, I guess I've answered my question. It's a village that's full of charm and character, isn't it? Absolutely it is. Here's another house which certainly fits those two bills. Look at this. Beautiful thatched cottage. Fantastic. And this one overlooks the village's recreation ground. So if I turn the camera around here, you can see the recreation field. There's a playground off to the right over there. This is Harmston Park, the village's modest-sized playing field. According to the signs, it doesn't allow dogs. There are plenty of places to walk your dog here though, and plenty of other green space too. Here's an example. Our route now leaves Harmston Park and crosses Church Lane as we head for a footpath linking us to Vicarage Lane. Once on the path, look to the right and you'll see what could potentially be some earthworks. This is likely. That's because Harmston was the site of a toft, a settlement of small and relatively closely packed farms. There are still farms here, although probably not as many as there once were. From here, you get a good view of the church too. The path crosses a field next, which contains horses, so here it's always a good idea to keep a dog on its lead. Now we've reached Vicarage Lane. If you follow this to the right, it'll take you to the A607. However, we're going left. We're entering the oldest part of the village now, a world away from the new area we've just seen to the south. Harmston's street pattern is similar to that of Waddington, consisting of a number of closely spaced lanes. Defining its distinctive character, tight clusters of cottages were surrounded by farm paddocks and stackyards. Looking down the high street towards the church, you'll see a row of cottages which contains the old post office. And here we're right opposite Harmston's pub, which is called the Thorold Arms. I'll just hop out of the way so you can have a better look at it. There it is. Nice looking pub, nice looking pub. We're now going to go down the side of the pub, down this road here. That's Blacksmith Lane, and this will complete the loop of the village. On Blacksmith Lane, there's a former United Free Methodist chapel. Built in 1857, this later became an industrial building. It's considered to be a significant unlisted building within Harmston's conservation area, which we're now in. The houses here are beautiful. For example, here's Beam House, last valued at upwards of £675,000. At the end of the road, we're treated once again to the fabulous view that the Lincoln Cliff can offer. Isn't this just ace? All of the cliff villages could claim to have the best view. I reckon it's between Harmston and Colby myself. Next to pass is the shelter for the village pump. It marks the spot of the spring, which was originally the village's main focus. School Lane now, and next is the Memorial Hall, built in memory of the local men who lost their lives in World War I. It was given by Nathaniel Clayton Cockburn, a major in the Imperial Yeomanry. He also has a street named after him here too. You'd be right to think there's a school on this road. Lo and behold, here it is, a former national school, built in 1851. At full capacity, it could cater for 152 children. These days, Harmston has no school and local children have to go elsewhere. We're now briefly back onto the high street again before we turn right to go down our penultimate street, Chapel Lane. Here is the chapel its name refers to, a former Wesleyan effort, which was founded in 1846. It closed in 1993. Around the corner at the end and right in front of us is the entrance to Harmston Hall, which was completed in 1710. By 1719 it was the home of the Thorold family, more specifically the Lord Mayor of London, Sir George Thorold. And there we are, back to the church, and that's been Harmston. Harmston Hall is such a fine property that it's deserving of its own special section. The oddest thing is that outside of North Kesteven, not many people have heard of it. The land on which it stands once belonged to the Thorold family, and the present house was started by Sir Charles Thorold. It was his younger brother, Sir George, who would complete its construction. The mansion would become his summer retreat. Sir George would later add a tall north front to the house, but this was pulled down in 1892 when the family departed Harmston Hall for good. In 1898, it came into the possession of Nathaniel Clayton Cockburn. Its size caused problems. It was hard for it to be maintained because it was far too big. Therefore, it was no surprise when it was sold to the Lincolnshire Board for the Mentally Defective, who opened it as a colony in 1935. The rest we've already covered. Just imagine the despairing shrieks from the inmates echoing through its long corridors. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.